Hi everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulty. We bought this new system so people can hear us a little better, and they can't hear me at all. So hopefully you can hear me now. So I'll wait for the comments before I really go into details. So let me see if I can ask all of you if you can hear me now. So here we go. So I'm gonna do a little test to see. Yes, you guys can hear me. Awesome. So I'll go right into it. So my apologies again for technology getting the best of me. So again, thank you for taking the time and sharing a part of your day. I know how busy all of you are, and thank you for sharing that time so we can share some important information with you. So I'm Dr. Partha Nandi, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm a practicing gastroenterologist and internist. And today I want to talk about something that's really very, very important to me. It's close to my heart, which is addiction. And I really am just amazed at what's going on in our society with addiction. Never has it been a worse time, I believe, in our country. And the statistics are that every 3 weeks, the same number of people that died in 9/11 are dying of the addiction to narcotics and opioids. It's just startling to me. It's amazing that that's happening. And so what can we do? We really need better tools, right? Better systems of treatment to fight this. So today I'm talking about a really innovative subject, and what that involves using your gut bacteria, your gut organisms, what we call collectively the gut microbiome, and how can we use this to be able to fight addiction? And can the gut microbiome, that stuff in the trillions of organisms in your gut, can that actually be playing a role in you becoming an addiction? So most people who are addicts, they're not really told when they go into a treatment center, hey, let's talk about your gut bacteria, right? Nobody says, let's talk about what you're putting in your mouth and how you can really change the paradigm there. So that's what I want to talk about, how we can then make the shift to really be innovative and successful for treatment. Thank you all for joining us. Paula is telling me we can hear you. Kristen's telling me we can hear you. Thank you for joining us. Katie, good to see you. I just saw Katie a few hours ago. Barbara, Shader, Sandy, Blythe, wherever you are in the world, it may be good morning somewhere, maybe it's good evening. So let's get right into it. So what are we talking about here? And what is addiction, right? So a lot of people, they mistake addiction for this, that they feel like addicts are weak, that they have a lack of sound judgment, and they feel like it's kind of a problem where people can't really understand how to control themselves. Far from it. For those non-addicts who are watching, here's how I can give you the best scenario. Imagine wanting something as bad as you've ever wanted your entire life, right? Like nothing else matters, and you really want that thing or that activity, and then multiplied by 1,000, maybe even 1,000,000, so that every one of your behaviors is geared towards that goal. So your brain, all of your brain's protective abilities are gone, and you really are just tuned into that. The American Psychiatric Association defines addiction as what? A complex condition, a brain disease that is manifested by compulsive substance use or other behaviors despite harmful consequence. Two things I want to really point out here. One is that this is a disease, folks. Also, number two is that it results in a harmful consequence. The behavior continues. So a lot of people don't think of this as a disease. Even people in the medical profession, many doctors that are treating this disease don't always view it or treat it as a disease. Again, it's treated as some weakness in judgment. It's really important to understand that it's far more than that. And addiction can involve the use of substances. And a lot of us know about alcohol, opioids, cocaine, nicotine, one of the biggest addictions we have out there, right? And other behaviors such as gambling. We know about sex addiction. Now, there's scientific evidence, scientific proof that the addictive substances and behaviors shares a key neurobiological feature. And what they do is they intensely activate these brain pathways of reward and reinforcement. So in your brain, you have the reward center, right? And then the reinforcement of that reward. And a lot of it involves the neurotransmitter, which is called dopamine. And that's something that's really critical to understanding it. So hopefully you guys are following me there. It's this is really important to understand. So as a gastroenterologist, I feel the gut is the center of the planet, right? So I think that lots of things are really involved and important in your gut. But I'll tell you that with addiction, this is truly important. Now, over the years, I've had many emotional, psychiatric, and behavioral symptoms triggered by problems in the gut. And sadly, more and more cases of addiction. So the question is, why do some people become addicted to painkillers or really any kind of behaviors and others don't, right? What is it about them? And what's the mechanism that really opens the door to addiction? And so what will be surprising is that maybe this doesn't really involve your brain. Addiction and recovery actually can begin in your gut. That's why I said your gut. So for the next few minutes, I'll share some important facts to help you understand how addiction is really tied to your gut and what you can do to protect yourself and those who you love. Kind of chart out an easier, more successful recovery if you're navigating an addiction. So before I go into it, I really want to tell you, if you're battling an addiction of any kind, please get support. Reach out to a therapist, your doctor, do a 12-step program. The worst thing that anyone can do when they're going through an addiction is that, knuckle down and try to say that, I'm going to do it in isolation. Almost no one that I know has recovered from an addiction alone. I really think, in our Nandi community, we talk about the tribe, so important. I wrote a book about, how to be your own health hero. And I talk about an entire chapter devoted to tribe. You need to have people around you to support you. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you will not be successful in battling addiction. So I want to get that out of the way. Please get help, reach out, and find people to support you. Now, we know that a huge percentage of people who are addicted to anything, will relapse, even with the standard treatment that we give. And approaching addiction really from the top down, from someone's brain and thoughts and emotions, is important, but not enough. So thinking that this up here is kind of the only thing that you need to do is really not enough. So as a gastroenterologist, as you know, an internist, I've seen thousands of patients, and I see the gut-brain connection, the gut-brain axis at work every day in my office and my practice. And even in non-addicted patients, right, people know that the gut can cause, and we have evidence that gut can cause depression or lead to depression or be related to depression and sleep issues. So it's an important issue, not just for addicts, but for everyone. So precisely how does your gut contribute to depression? So many studies talk about what's called the gut-brain connection. So I first want you to understand that the gut has a nervous system. Yes, a nervous system, which is actually more complex than your central nervous system. So that's an amazing concept and an important one to understand, that your gut's enteric nervous system, its own nervous system, is pretty complex. So the nerves and neurons that connect with your brain and mind, the gut has its own nervous system. These connect to your brain and your mind. And in fact, the gut actually contains more neurotransmitters than your brain. The gut is wired to your brain, and messages travel in both directions. Really important to understand, because people think of the gut as this digestion and eating and tasting food and absorbing foods, but it's really more than that. And this messaging is really important. And when those messages, right, are detoured, blocked, or changed in any way, it can and it will affect your mind, your behavior, your mood. Hope that makes sense so far. It's really important to understand, the concept here. A lot of you joining us here. It's amazing. Catherine Reardon says, that's very nice. Says, I said, book of yours behind you. I'm saving for it. I love the tribe. Thank you, Catherine. And Jerry Bailey, amazing to see you, sir. We miss seeing Jerry in person, but thank you for joining us. Noni Singh joined us, and it's amazing. So lots of people around the country and the world. So thank you for joining us and sticking with us here so I can go through and explaining kind of what's going on with your gut. Now remember, we talked about the gut, really the message is getting detoured and blocked, changed in any direction, and that can affect your mood. But the gut also creates important chemicals that control mood, as well as your sense of well-being. And it does this by doing what? It creates chemicals. That's right, it creates chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, and GABA. And a lot of people thought they were all created in your brain. That's not right. So your gut is creating a lot of those chemicals. And then when you have a gut that's not functioning well, right, doesn't have the right microbiome, doesn't have the right real composition, if you don't have one that's controlled, that's not functioning well, it can absolutely impact your mood. And that's a straight line, right? Leaving a door wide open to addiction and to relapse. I'll say that again. If your gut is not functioning well, absolutely impacts your mind. I had a patient come in, and he had a disease, hepatitis, and he was there for treatment. He said, I just need a prescription, doc. And I said, what's going on? He said, well, I'm in a center for recovery. I'm an addict, and I have a center for recovery. And I see this prescription for hepatitis. I'll be on my way. I said, but what is it that you eat? And they said, what does it have to do with my addiction? I said, it has everything to do with your addiction. Because if your gut isn't straight, and you're putting all kinds of crap and processed foods that your body doesn't want, doesn't love, and actually fights against, then guess what's going to happen? You have not even a fighting chance in getting your addiction controlled. He said, nobody's ever told me that. I said, well, that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm on. I'm here to tell you ways in which you can get back to normal, get back to a behavior that you can accept and your family can accept, that you can function without having to possibly lose your life. So knowing that your gut, if it's not functioning well, right, that it can actually lead to relapse, lead to you being unsuccessful in treating your addiction is critical. So one of the things we know that there's a crosstalk between the intestinal bacteria in the gut and central nervous system, often called the gut-brain axis. And it's super important for brain homeostasis. And that literally means that your peace of mind. So there's crosstalk between the intestinal bacteria. And the one things we can consider is that probiotics have been used to heal the gut and may lead to improvements in the mood. So this could be a really unexpected facet of recovery. Many people that I know have gone to a program that I really, really trust called Biome, and you can click the link that I have here. It's biome.com/health hero. You can find out what is going on with your gut microbiome and what's happening, and perhaps whether you're an addict or a loved one's an addict, or just if you want a healthy gut. I think it's really important. But really key is that you understand now that there's a crosstalk between the intestinal bacteria in the gut and the central nervous system, and the gut-brain axis depends on that. And so literally, if you want peace of mind, better improvement in depression, improvement in wellness, and also improvement in treatment for addiction, those intestinal bacteria, organisms, and microbiome is super critical. In one study on recovery from alcohol addiction, people who had high gut permeability, also known as the leaky gut. Remember, the gut is supposed to be is really tight. It's one cell layer thick. So if I can show you that, one cell layer thick, and if there's gaps in that, it leaks. So all the stuff that's in your poop, in your intestine, can go into your bloodstream. So people who had alcohol addiction, who had a leaky gut, had a much more difficult time with withdrawal symptoms, including depression, anxiety, alcohol cravings, even after weeks after the start of sobriety. So much more than those without a leaky gut. And you need the right microbiome to prevent a leaky gut, right? The participants in the study actually with low gut permeability, so those are locked shut, that there's no openings, no real leakiness to their gut, did not start out with as high depression and anxiety scores and completely recovered from their symptoms, affective symptoms. So to explore some of the evidence of the gut's participation in other addictions, it was a recent study we found out about the depletion or the reduction of the gut microbiome that resulted in what? A change in the behavioral response to cocaine. So when you looked at the gut and the bugs in the gut, when you had a change, it resulted in a change in the behavioral response to cocaine and psychostimulant drugs. So showing again that the interactions among the gut-brain axis can be important in the development of the cocaine reward association. So cocaine or other drugs or other behavior, that actually the bugs in your gut can actually influence that. So again, please go to the site of Biome and look up what is it that's going on in my gut, and then find out ways you can treat it. We also have a superfoods cookbook that we're going to give you a link here for, that you can look at superfoods that can actually help your gut microbiome, make it healthier, right? So it's good to talk about a problem, but with both the Biome program and our superfoods cookbook, you can really find some solutions. In the study that I was talking about, that they found that there was a depletion of gut bacteria that resulted in the altered transcriptional profiling of something called N-acetylcysteine. It's a big word, right? But N-acetylcysteine is a powerful supplement that helps to detoxify toxins that are produced by intestinal yeast and bacterial overgrowth, and stimulates immune function in the gut lining. So guess what? So when your bacteria change, this substance called N-acetylcysteine change, that helps to detoxify toxins produced by intestinal yeast, and so it helps the immune function. So there's so many things that the gut really does, and the bacteria in the gut. So I think that to have a fighting chance in addiction, I think it's really important to look at the gut bacteria and see what we can do to really alter it, right? So something, obviously, keep going to your therapist, keep doing your programs, but don't forget that the gut can be such an important part. In fact, the center of this whole process. I'm going to see if we can take some comments here, and also let me take a look and see if I can get some of your questions here. Melissa Jane, welcome. Suhaila Dawoodi, we're from Nevada, welcome. And then let's see if we can hear you now. Mary says, awesome. Let's see. Pamela Bird says, from English major at A&M to this terrible ripple effect when someone you love is doing. Absolutely, talking about addiction can be horrible. Let's take a look and see. I'm going to try to find some of your questions. Let's see. Aha, here we go. So, would addiction also mean more than drugs? And could it be anything someone is addicted to, since the reward part of the brain can be triggered by almost anything? Absolutely. And here's the thing that people have to understand. So we know, right, the traditional addiction is this, that it's the drugs and alcohol, but it can also be behaviors. And the same process is happening. The behavior goes to your brain, and your reward center gets activated, dopamine gets activated, and you then are hooked. You just do everything you can for the behavior. And remember, it's a disease, and guess what? It also occurs even if you have harmful consequences. So that's really critical, and that's really important to make sure that you understand. So it absolutely can be, because besides something like a drug, it can be gambling, it can be sex. So really important question. And here's another question, and this is from Ron. Says, could repairing your gut leave you less likely to becoming addicted? Yeah, this is a great question. So we talked about the leaky gut, right? So absolutely, if you don't have a leaky gut, and if you have more of a intact gut, we now know that the evidence shows that you have a better chance of recovery. Now, again, the message is not like get rid of all of your therapy and traditional treatments, but actually this can add to it, enhance it to a significant degree. So absolutely, if you can enhance your gut and make it less permeable and not make it as leaky, you can absolutely get the right effect. So again, my Superfoods cookbook talks about this, and how you can use amazing foods that are done simply, less than half an hour, and find out what's going on with your gut. Let's find out what your microbiome is, and go to biome.com/health hero. So we'll put that up for you. So great questions. Let's see if I can find some more. So Sue Smith says, what are your comments on probiotics versus prebiotics? Great question. So just to define, probiotics are the good bugs, right? The good bacteria that we talk about that can help enhance you. Remember the trillions of these organisms all throughout your gut. So then what can you do to enhance them, right? So you people take probiotics. I love fermented foods. You talk about like sauerkraut, kimchi, talk about yogurt, Greek yogurt. All these things can help. Now, prebiotics are what those probiotics, those good bacteria, big good organisms like to eat to get them to be even bigger. So those are like fiber foods will be great. Onion, garlic are great. So foods, prebiotics help to grow the good bacteria. So if you have any questions, that we're not answering, please, we'll put a link up so you can answer those questions. We'll give you a link that you can go to, and we'll definitely answer those questions for you. So I appreciate all of those comments and questions. If we can't get to some of them, please, put those on, and we'll put the link on for you so you can get those questions answered. Let me see if we get another question. So thanks all of you for joining us. So this is awesome. Let me get to those questions. It's always great to get technology to help me out here. Boom. So here we go. And again, somebody says, what processes could someone use to fix their gut? So that gentleman who was an addict, what I told him was that the first step is what? Don't eat anything in a can or box. What does that mean? That means don't eat processed foods, right? Have foods that are whole. Have foods that you know what you're going into. So that means doing something unconventional, and that means cooking your own food. Unbelievable. You have to go in that room in your house that you don't visit, called the kitchen. Get your kids together, have them do something that we do with our kids, which is to cook together. And then pick whole foods. Pick foods that are natural antioxidants. Those are called fruits and vegetables, right? And you make them. You don't have to have a bunch of meat and products of meat all the time in order to really be able to get a good nutritious meal. So the first thing is that you want to have whole foods. Then you want to have foods that actually can heal you. And I'll tell you, having a plant-based diet is huge. So more plants, less animals would be the key. And again, try to avoid all that processing. That'd be the first step. If you go to my Superfoods Cookbook, I'll give you great recipes on how to do that. And some people say, well, Doc, I love your Superfoods Cookbook, but I want snacks sometimes. Sometimes it's not a huge meal. So we also made a snack food book for you with a lot of the superfoods, which then can help your gut. These foods are specially designed that not only are they good for you in general, right? But also it's good for your gut. It helps your gut to really replenish itself. And I think one of the key steps is that to find out what it is that your gut has. What is the microbiome? What are the trillions of bugs in your gut that are really making a difference? And I think that's great to find out. And that's why the biome site that I talked about is really important to go in and find out what's actually happening. Let's see if we have any other questions here. Also, could someone heal their gut? Could healing their gut make it more likely to recover from addiction? So we talked about, how the gut can really affect your neurotransmitters. Talk about the serotonin, and talk about some of the dopamine that's created and how it can really affect that. But I talked about a study that showed that people actually with a intact gut, when the gut's functioning well, then what happens is that you actually can do something profound, which is that you can actually recover from addiction. That's the whole point of this. We're losing millions of people from this disease. So how can we then make the change to have these people not go from being addicts to recurrent relapsers rather? I think that using some of these techniques, finding out what your gut microbiome is, go to Biome and find out what the microbiome is, and then use the natural foods and some of the recipes we have to really be able to repair that and get the right combination of foods. I think that's where it starts. The most powerful weapon you have is the fork. So really very cool. Let me see if I may be able to answer one other question here, if you have it. What about gut health and children with autism? Lynn says. So the evidence is controversial, but I do believe that many practitioners of autism who help kids with autism. We had one on our show, the Dr. Nandi show, just and this will air later in the fall. And she has treated so many folks with autism that starting with the gut and really repairing the gut in the way we're talking about, using foods that are not toxic, right? And cutting out foods that may be causing the damage to the intestine. So I absolutely believe the gut is an important part, a vital part of every disease that includes autism. So I absolutely, I think that the gut could be related. Please take a look and see the kind of foods that are being, by being eaten, taken by the individual, the person with autism, and see if we can change it. Again, all processed foods out, and then toy with the idea of also, or trial decreasing the dairy, decreasing gluten, see if that helps the individual. The gluten and the dairy may not help every single one, but I would attempt to see if that makes a difference. And the changes could be dramatic. The other issue with autism besides the gut is you have to also look at the environmental toxins and see the behavioral consequence of that. So you want to look at their emotional toxicity, what kind of environment they're in, but also all the electronic devices and the energy devices around them, try to limit them as much as possible. But to answer your question, absolutely do I believe that the gut can, and treating the gut and helping the gut be whole again can help autism? Absolutely. So again, the Biome program can really help to find out what the gut microbiome is, and then we can try to solve it from there. We have a couple of good tools, the Superfoods Cookbook and the Snack Food Cookbook as well, for you to be able to enjoy, and all those folks who have problems with addiction, or families or friends that they love. This could be really an important way to be able to solve that. Again, you don't stop your treatment with your therapist or your traditional treatments. This could add to it. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I really appreciate your time. And again, we'll try to do another Facebook Live very soon here in the next 2 weeks, and with a topic that I think that will be really useful to all of you. So again, thank you for joining us. And remember, as we always say, make healthy living a part of every day. Namaste to all of you, and I will see you all very soon. If you have any more questions, if you haven't answered, we'll put a link so we can answer those questions for you. Thanks so much. Okay, I'll see you later.